right. We haven't talked about the news here in a couple of weeks. I'm sure nothing too crazy is happening. Let's just see what the most recent news is. Trump threatens to terminate Elon's government subsidies and contracts. And Elon Musk claims that Trump is on the Epstein files, and that's why they haven't been released. Oh dear. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Righteous Rhetoric. There's been a lot of news going on, so let's go ahead and start by opening up with the beef between Donald Trump and Elon Musk. We'll set a bit of the context. Elon Musk was the head of Doge, which was in charge of cutting government spending, making several controversial cuts in the government. This includes cuts to USAID, Social Security, and the VA. This also included cuts to cancer research, Ebola research, firing and then rehiring key staff that were also running these programs. Ultimately, these disruptions in hiring and firing likely caused their own economic costs instead of saving us money as well. USAID was controversial due to many in need in other countries not having access to life-saving aid that they depended on from the United States, and cutting it so quickly that aid that was already sent off in shipments, people could no longer get them because the funding they needed to get the aid the rest of the way was just gone. And so all of that supplies just ended up rotting in containers. This also comes in the fact that the USAID made up less than 1% of the government's overall budget. So we barely saved any money while taking away key aid from people who really needed it. The Trump administration, however, continued to support Elon and Doge in its quest to cut the budget. Elon's original goal was to cut $2 trillion. That number later dropped to $1 trillion before ending up at about $160 billion. However, this number has continued to be disputed as well. Now, once Elon achieved more or less his short-term goals, Elon claimed that he was ready to focus on his business again, and so Trump gave him a send-off on May 28th, where Elon was no longer a special government employee. Trump thanked him for his service, gave him a chance to talk in the Oval Office, and then he left. However, in the time that Elon has left the White House, he's begun to criticize Trump's big, beautiful bill. We'll talk more about what that bill is here a bit later. Now, the critiques started minor, with Elon sharing his disappointment about the fact that the bill added over $2 trillion to the deficit, going against what he and Doge aimed to do, which was to lower government spending. Now, from there, Elon would go onto Twitter and become more vocal of his critiques within the past couple days, tweeting out, "I'm sorry, but I just can't stand it anymore. This massive, outrageous, pork-filled congressional spending bill is a disgusting abomination. Shame on those who voted for it. You know you did wrong. You know it." End quote. Now, after about 2 days of silence from Elon critiquing the bill publicly on Twitter, or X as it's called, he finally commented in a press interview about the situation, saying that he was very disappointed with Elon and that he had, quote, done quite a lot for him. He also stated that since leaving the White House, Elon must be suffering from what he claims others do, Trump derangement syndrome. From there, things began to escalate pretty quickly. Musk took credit for the sweeping Republican victory in November's last election, writing, "Without me, Trump would have lost the election, Dems would control the House, and the Republicans would be 51-49 in the Senate." He added at the end, "Such ingratitude." Over the course of the day, Musk also reposted a tweet calling for Trump to resign and argued that his global tariff plan will trigger a U.S. recession. In response to this, Trump posted on Truth Social claiming that Musk just went crazy and said the easiest way to save money in our budget, billions and billions of dollars, is to terminate Elon's governmental subsidies and contracts. I was always surprised Biden didn't do it. And once Trump shared this, Musk fired back by tweeting, "Time to drop the really big bomb. Real Donald Trump is in the Epstein files. This is the real reason they have not been made public. Have a nice day, DJT." End quote. This ultimately stunned those with close relationships to Trump and Musk. Needless to say, this is an explosive end of Elon and Trump's relationship, and this surprised many people given how endlessly Elon advocated for Donald Trump and his campaign and donated to it as well. Elon could be seen wearing hats at one point that said everything Trump said was right. And during the campaign, he donated $288 million. This means Elon went from a staunch supporter to a special government worker to accusing him of being on the Epstein list, which is to more or less accuse him of being a pedophile at this point. Thus ends one of the world's most powerful relationship. The world's most powerful man, the President of the United States, and the world's richest man, Elon Musk, who were allies for a time and through the campaign, are now at each other's throats. And we don't know how this is going to implicate the U.S. or its policies anytime here soon. However, this is a big deal. Trump and Musk together really helped invigorate the Republican base in particular. Trump has always had his supporters for a while now, but a lot of tech bros and Elon supporters really came alongside Trump during the campaign as Elon supported him. But that's over now, and Elon is overtly critiquing Trump and this big, beautiful bill. And what this means as he's doing this is that a lot of people who were unquestionably supporting the Trump administration are starting to see some of the cracks form. Elon is going as far as to tell people to call their Congress members to tell them not to pass this bill and that it isn't what the American people want. And we haven't seen a potential divide in Trump's administrations and his fans and his supporters like this until now. Obviously, we need more time to see how this is going to play out to see if this truly fractures the base, but it's a pretty big deal. Now, we'll go ahead and dive into the details of Trump's bill after this quick message. Romans 15, 5-7 says this: "Give you the same attitude of mind towards each other that Christ Jesus had, so that with one mind and one voice you may glorify the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ. Accept one another, then, just as Christ accepted you, in order to bring praise to God." In a world full of division and anger, remember that we as Christians have the opportunity to bring glory to God by offering encouragement and kindness towards one another. We stand out in the world this way. Times are hard and yes, challenging, but God helps us endure. And we show that to other people when we encourage and love one another. Now, let's go ahead and talk about Trump's big, beautiful bill, as he calls it. This bill has become one of the most unpopular bills as folks have learned more and more about it. The roughest part of it includes tax cuts for the rich, increased taxes on those making $50,000 or less a year, higher Medicaid costs and premiums, and adding $2.4 trillion to the deficit over 10 years. Now, obviously, this is a problem because a big highlight of Trump's administration was supposed to be DOGE and saving on over government spending. But to add $2.4 trillion to the deficit completely goes against that idea. Not only that, in the bill, AI regulation and limiting certain courts' power are in this bill as well. Republican House member Marjorie Taylor Greene, a constantly staunch Trump reporter, admitted to not knowing about the AI regulation or lack thereof until recently, and due to the implication it has on states' rights that she wouldn't have passed the bill if she knew it was in there. Other House Republicans have come out against this bill as well because of the way that it limits the powers of the lower courts or other courts in this administration as well. Now, there are a number of Senate Republicans that don't want this bill to happen either because they are completely against adding to the deficit. It's what they've run their campaigns on. And Trump doesn't have a very large margin to work with in the Senate. So unless he's able to somehow get these people on board, granted, the number of people who've begun speaking out against this bill continues to raise day by day, I don't see how this big, beautiful bill ultimately ends up passing. I don't think they have the numbers, and I don't think people are willing to add more to the deficit. But we'll just have to wait and see. This also brings up with an issue that our government has struggled with for a long time through many administrations, and that is that we try to pass too much at once. If bills were focused on a single issue or a single thing instead of several of them at once, more partisan work would be likely to be happening. But instead, when Republicans or Democrats try to put in their own agenda items, their own partisan politics, then bipartisan work can't happen. It's missed out on. And this is where things get held up and where no legislation or anything productive for the American people ends up happening. If we want to get back to having the government run in a somewhat efficient way, we can't be passing things large scale like this. We need to focus on issues one at a time in order to be more productive and to get more things done. Now, I don't know why the House or Congress are being motivated to do things like this since they've been on this kind of negative path of trying to pass everything at once for a while now, but it would make a significant difference to the American people to actually see things getting done and passed in Congress. Now, yes, that means it's been very busy for Donald Trump, his administration, Elon Musk, and all the things they're trying to pass. But it's been a very busy time for former President Joe Biden as well. A few weeks ago, Joe Biden went and did an interview on The View, but didn't go very well. You see, it appears as though Biden was doing this interview to try and support his legacy, all the good things that his time as president did. But during this interview, when he was trying to make the case that he had all his mental faculties, that he was doing well, that people were overreacting, he was tripping up. He was stumbling. He kept forgetting his words. It's what we saw within the last year and a half of the Biden administration. Nothing had changed, and his wife, Jill, picked up the slack for him and helped answer questions when he would begin trailing off too much. But ultimately, if Biden's goal is to defend his legacy, I don't think this is the way to do it. We all know what we saw the last few months, the last year and a half of Biden's presidency, and those were concerns about both his age and thus his mental faculties to lead the nation as well. It's one of the primary reasons that Democrats lost, that they didn't think Joe Biden could do the job, and that arguably he did not leave enough time for a new Democratic candidate to come forward, or the one that did come forward, Kamala Harris, had enough time to run an effective enough campaign or distance herself from the baggage of Joe Biden. And what does Joe Biden do in one of his first big interviews post losing the presidency? Defend himself, tell us that we didn't see the reality that we saw and we heard with him, and try to support his legacy. That's not the way to do it. You can't tell the American people that they're not seeing what they're seeing, that they're not hearing what they're hearing. You can't deny reality. And the reality is that Joe Biden was losing it. He lost his step. And there are some Republicans of far right-wing folks that go back as far as 2019 who were claiming things back then, which back then I wouldn't have necessarily agreed. I would just said, sure, he's getting older, but I still think he's there. But if you go back and you watch clips and you follow the timeline, it really doesn't look good. And so if Biden wants to defend his legacy, he needs to quit telling the American people that they didn't see what we saw, that we didn't hear what we heard during debates, during interviews, during his time as president. Americans deserve to have someone who is honest with them. And one of my biggest critiques of the Trump administration is that they're never honest with us. They are not as transparent as they claim to be, and I have a real issue with that. But that means that critique applies to the last administration as well. And to continue lying post your time in administration doesn't help either. We deserve people who are honest with us. We deserve people who are going to lead us in a way that is actually transparent. And it would be a refreshing change of pace if we could actually get that. Just a few days after that interview on May 18th, news dropped that Joe Biden was dealing with an aggressive form of prostate cancer. This is terrible news. Anyone that has had cancer or family or friends that are near and dear to them that have had cancer, it's just terrible. Cancer is a really hard and a tough thing to get through, and all thoughts and prayers go out to Joe Biden and his family. It's a really rough thing, and we hope for nothing but the most positive outcome during this time. But then, on top of all of that news, just a couple of weeks after that, Jake Tapper dropped his book, Original Sin. And it's supposed to discuss the alleged cover-up of Joe Biden's mental faculties by his inner circle and people nearest to him during the administration. Obviously, Biden, his inner circle, his family are not very happy about this. They've denied the claims by Jake Tapper and the people that he interviewed in his book, but that doesn't change the fact, again, that this book is coming out. And that even though there's a new administration now, several people are still interested into what happened with Biden, how he was acting, and why the administration wasn't honest with us when he was clearly struggling. So it'll be interesting to see people's response to Jake Tapper's book. The longer it's been out there, the more interviews that end up happening, and to see what that means for, I guess, Democrats in particular, who have been divided about acknowledging or ignoring that there was a problem with Joe Biden and what their future is going to be moving forward. Considering they are currently the political party that is not in power and that they have several struggles as a result of losing this election and losing it badly, losing by quite a bit. It'll be interesting to see how they respond to one of the worst parts of this last administration's legacy and cover-up. And that's all to say to see if they'll learn their lesson and if we'll get a better candidate from one of the parties, or some parties are stubborn and they refuse to learn. And this will be an interesting time to see if we get something different a couple of years down the line. Which, if you look at polling across the board, Americans at this point do want something different. They're tired of seeing Donald Trump and Joe Biden over and over and over again. Joe Biden set the record for being the oldest president ever, and the only person who's going to be breaking that is Donald Trump by the end of his presidency, being one of the oldest presidents ever, with people sharing their own concerns about his mental faculties and his ramblings and how he goes on and on and on and on. And so Americans are certainly ready for a change of pace, and it will be interesting to see if both parties, if one of them, or if neither of them actually adjust to this want and this need that we're seeing in the polling and give us a more younger, energetic, engaged candidate. But that's farther down the line. So what encouragement can I leave you with today? Well, Philippians 2 verses 3-4 goes like this. Either in humility, value others above yourself, not looking to your own interest, but each of you to the interest of the others. Look, we have seen in a lot of leadership here in the United States, both past and present, that they're selfish, vain, and focus only on themselves and their glory and their legacy, and tearing down each other in the process. There's a whole lot of fighting. There's a whole lot of selfishness. But we give thanks to a God who is not like this, who tells us to live and to love like him and to serve and to value other people above ourselves. In a world we see people constantly trying to grasp power, to move forward their own agendas, to be as in control as possible, be humble, be a servant, put the needs of others above your own, and let us all strive to show a love like that of Jesus. Thank you so much for catching up with me today, guys, and I'll see you next time.